and I hate to be too, too overly serious about it, but when you're talking about, again, lifting vehicles, average vehicle weight being between 2 and 3 tons in many cases, this is literally life or death. You do not want to have that accident. You do not want to make that mistake because you're trying to rush through something that brings a vehicle down from several feet up and potentially over your head. That is not a situation you want to be in, and it's quite serious. I use the term critical not lightly.
Welcome back to another episode of the Collision Vision, driven by Auto Body News. As always, I'm your host, Cole Strandberg. Welcome back to our Safety First, Prioritizing Health in the Workshop series, with a discussion about one of the most essential aspects of shop safety, lift safety, and ergonomically designed equipment. Joining us today is Dave Wiederschall, National Account Manager at Bendpak, a leader in designing lifts and other shop equipment that prioritize both safety and efficiency. Today, Dave will walk us through the importance of proper lift usage, best practices for safety and maintenance, and how ergonomically designed equipment can improve technician health and shop performance, and maybe even be used as a recruiting tool. Enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by Thryv. Ready to hit the gas on growth? Meet Thryv, the do-it-all small business software that can save you over 20 hours a week. Attract customers, manage day-to-day tasks, and keep communication simple with one powerful tool made for your auto business. Rev up your revenue today and let Thryv save you time so you can get back to doing what you love. Visit thryv.com. That's THRYV.com to schedule a demo today. Dave, thank you so much for joining us here today on the Collision Vision.
Hey, thanks for having me, Cole. Great to be here.
Looking forward to a fun conversation. As I mentioned in our pre-show call, I know a little bit about this topic, more than maybe a lot of the topics we discussed. So looking forward to diving in on the equipment and lift piece of the collision repair industry. I want to start with something pretty broad and wide-reaching, but obviously lifts are a central piece of equipment for any repair shop. Start by sharing with us why lift safety is something that's so critical.
That's a loaded question. First off, lift safety. Well, why do you want to be safe when you have 2 to 3 tons above your head?
Pretty obvious on the surface, no doubt.
But yeah, it's critical not just in collision repair, but it's it's critical throughout the automotive industry. One of the things, when I think of collision repair specifically, you're working in an environment that has a lot of very delicate, you have delicate chemicals, you have delicate parts, you have a lot of hazardous materials around, I guess is really the best way to phrase it. And it just takes a little bit of extra care. I think of, general repair. Is lift safety critical? Of course. But in auto body, everything is just that much more delicate. You have a lot of things to consider with lift safety. One of the things that really comes to mind is when you're taking, when you're doing auto body work, you're taking off panels, you're working with sub-assemblies, you're working with generally large parts of vehicles. And one of the things is you really need to be mindful of weight distribution. So when we talk about lift safety in collision centers specifically, that's where my mind tends to go is, weight distribution and verifying that you have the right accessories, high lift jack stands, and you're considering what large pieces are being moved around and how you're compensating for that, and aware of where your vehicle's maintained on the lift.
So I have a follow-up question that, again, on the surface, pretty straightforward. And without getting too graphic, I do want to paint a picture of kind of what's at stake here by not using lifts appropriately or making sure the lifts are safe to use. What are some of the main risks associated with improper lift usage?
There's the big one.
Keep it PG or even G for us if you would, but
okay,
obviously there's some high stakes.
Sure. Sure. So the big one is dropping a vehicle. You don't want to drop a vehicle. Dropping a vehicle is extremely hazardous. That's a situation where techs can have a huge potential for injury. It's very costly, of course, but really the potential for injury and safety of the technicians should be paramount. Um, and that's just one of those things that we see in our industry. So many accidents that could have been avoided with just a little bit more attention to detail when it comes to how you're loading a vehicle, how you're um, getting it on the rack, making sure, like I was saying before, making sure that if you are going to be removing any large large assemblies that represent a lot of weight, making sure that that's compensated for, so that you don't end up in in a weight imbalance situation. Um, that's just the big risk. The big risk is losing a vehicle and the cost associated, but more importantly, the potential for injury and harm to technicians.
Now, obviously, you're here representing Bendpak. From your perspective, whether it's Bendpak's resources or an industry as a whole, if you're sitting
Mhm.
here with that body shop owner or operator kind of hat on, and you're concerned about lift safety and saying, man, I don't know that I'm doing enough. How do I ensure that we're doing this right? What kind of resources do they have at their disposal?
So, one thing about Benpak is we're a member of the ALI. That's the Automotive Lift Institute. And not only through Benpak, but through ALI, there are a number of resources available uh, to verify that you are lifting properly. All of our ALI certified lifts come with an ALI lift guide. There are resources online, and then of course, there's the easy one, which is refer to the vehicle manufacturer's lift, specified lift points. Make sure that you're doing it by the book, the way that the original OEM had intended. And that sometimes means having different adapters available. Not just setting the standard lift pad. I'm always thinking two post lifts, but not using the standard pad or adapter, but going to a frame cradle pad when you're lifting an applicable vehicle. As we move into newer vehicles, Tesla comes to mind. That have specialty lift adapters. Teslas and actually new Corvettes as well, the C8s. So having those specialty adapters, making sure that you're lifting the way that the OEM, the vehicle manufacturer intended, and familiarizing yourself with not just the lift manual, but the guides provided on proper lifting from the lift manufacturer and ALI are critical.
Good stuff. And I know each lift essentially is going to have some different intricacies, but zooming out
Of
and
course.
speaking in generalities, what are some best practices you could share that every shop should follow to ensure their lifts are used, call it safety and correctly?
um, this is going to be this is super cliche. Read the owner's manual. um, I know at Benpak, we have a very complete owner's manual. A lot of people just think of it as an installation guide, but really it's a full operation guide. It tells you how to use the lift, how to properly use the lift, excuse me. It gives you, troubleshooting, maintenance guides, all of it. So really familiarizing yourself with the manual and not just setting it into a pile is a great place to start, no matter what lift you're using. And again, the resources available through ALI and just understanding lift safety as a whole. Understanding center of gravity, understanding how how the lift systems work, um, gives a technician a much better chance of doing it correctly the first time.
Great advice. And it's something we should do. And I don't mean to make a joke about this or light of it, but man, who among us has not enjoyed reading the manual on their lifts in their shops, right?
Oh, I know it. And it's one of those things where you open up the new toy owner's manual, just chuck it, and it's just don't do that, guys. Come on,
Oh,
come on.
man,
Because
when
what
we
that
talk
does,
life safety, right? When we talk life safety, it doesn't really matter how dense or not the reading is. Let's do this right. It's
and
important.
and and that's exactly right. It's just critical information, and I hate to be too you know too overly serious about it, but when you're talking about, again, lifting vehicles, average vehicle weight being between 2 and 3 tons in many cases, this is literally life or death. You do not want to have that accident. You do not want to make that mistake because you're trying to rush through something that brings a vehicle down from several feet up and potentially over your head. That is not a situation you want to be in, and it's quite serious. I use the term critical not lightly.
No question about it. No question about it. Very important stuff. And to that, coming from the industry, something that a lot of people talk about when they talk about lifts is inspections, certifications, and maintenance. Talk to me about the importance of all of these things and then how that impacts safety and, not unimportantly, longevity of the equipment as well.
All right. Well, that's yeah. Let's go through that. So, when we're talking about lifts, we're talking about in certification and safety standards and operation and maintenance and inspection through the life of the lift. First off, you should know a little bit about ALI, the Automotive Lift Institute, and what the ALI Gold label means. That means that a lift has been independently tested. It means it's been independently tested and certified, I should say, to meet a certain level of safety standard, which goes, um, let's just say, beyond the rated capacity of the lift. They really are quite thorough in making sure that lifts are built to withstand a lot more than what we generally throw at them. Not that we would ever advise, exceeding what a lift's rated capacity is, but it goes through a very thorough set of standards to qualify for that ALI Gold label. So making sure you're working with an ALI lift and having that Gold label is one of the first things that you can do to ensure a safe working environment. And then, of course, like we were talking about, using the tools properly, making sure that you're using and maintaining the lift per the spec, lifting vehicles correctly, and then moving into what you were talking about as far as maintenance and inspection. This is huge because this is where we start to see people slide a little bit. ALI, I believe, has a standard for an annual inspection. I believe that is an ANSI ALI standard. And I know ALI has the Check 360 program. If you go to autolift.org, you can find an ALI certified inspector to perform those annual inspections. However, if you look at that manual, you'll see that maintenance shouldn't just be done once a year. There are a lot of components that want, or that require, I should say, weekly, monthly, quarterly maintenance. And we need to not forget about that stuff. Keeping things properly maintained is critical. Let's use an example. 2-post lifts and 4-post lifts, most people are pretty familiar with. Those are equalized and leveled using cable systems, big steel braided cables. And one thing that happens to cables, they stretch just by nature of the beast. When they stretch a little bit, sometimes you have a potential to get a little bit out of even, and sometimes it's not really a big deal. You'll get your inspection. The inspector will come over. Oh, we found that these are out of adjustment. We need to get that tightened up. Worst case scenario, you have an issue where you get way out of balance. Then you get into the territory where you could have a potentially hazardous situation where vehicle drops can happen, or where you can damage the lift. When you're exerting more force on one column than the other, whether it be a 2-post or a 4-post, and you can have issues, and that's going to prematurely wear your lift. You're not getting the most out of your lift because you're just not treating it the way it wants to be treated and needs to be treated. We work in an industry maintaining vehicles. Our industry is maintaining vehicles in the collision, sector. Really rebuilding them, and you'd be amazed how many people are surprised that they have to maintain their equipment too.
No doubt. And again, it's important because we're talking life safety. And I know for firsthand, these ALI certifications are no joke to be able to certify. And so to have
Absolutely.
somebody in there who is associated in some way, shape, or form with ALI annually, super important. But you're only going to know about the maintenance requirements by reading that darn owner's manual. So keep that in mind for sure. You dropped a link, some sort of ALI associated link there. I want to get that
I
from
did.
you and be sure to put that in the show notes. Along those lines, what other resources are out there, whether it's ALI or Bendpak or otherwise, for people to learn more about their lifts and lift safety?
Well, I can speak to I can speak to Bendpak and ALI. The others I can't necessarily speak to. However, I
Sure.
can tell you that that website autolift.org is a wealth of information when it comes to lift maintenance, finding approved lifts, making sure that the lift you're looking at has an ALI gold label. Every ALI gold label certified lift is listed on that website. Um, Finding an inspector. There are numerous resources through autolift.org that you can use. And then I know on our side from Benpak, of course, we have manuals, we have troubleshooting guides, we have how-to videos, we have a wealth of information at our website, benpak.com. And of course, folks are always welcome to reach out to, one of our support representatives if they have any questions, if they notice anything about their lift that they feel is off, weird symptom, weird groaning noise. Call us. We're here for you. We're here for that specifically. So a lot of information about out there, both online, bendpak.com, autolift.org. And again, if you need to call us, we're here.
I'll go ahead and load up the show notes with all of those links, probably and then some, as well as the contact information to make that easy for
Please.
listeners. In talking with body shop owners and automotive business owners in general, it's a pretty fine line or hard line, I guess I should say, between people who have experienced some of these lift disasters firsthand and people questioning, like, man, are cars really falling off lifts? Like, that sounds horrible. How often is this happening, do you think? Like, how real of a risk is this day in and day out in automotive repair facilities across the US?
So I couldn't speak to a number of how often it happens. However, it is a real thing. Anybody that wants to, that wants to see what that looks like, just Google it. Go on YouTube, search lift failure, and you're going to see a lot of cars getting dropped. And that's actually that's actually an interesting thing to address is lift failure. We see that term a lot, lift failure. When you watch a lot of those videos, you're going to notice that the lift didn't fail. The car fell off, and that's because it wasn't loaded properly. You had a weight, you had a weight imbalance. People just don't consider. I think it's easy to get complacent, and that's coming from somebody who worked in general repair. I have a background in general repair. That was one of my first jobs out of high school was as a technician, and it's easy to get complacent. Oh, you're going to kick the legs under. That's close enough. That's close enough. Up we go. Bad habit. Very, very bad habit. That's what contributes to a lift. A car coming down off a lift. Like I was saying, when you look at some of these videos out there, when you look at some of these stories out there, more often than not, we're not seeing the lift fail. We're seeing an issue where the car came off because it wasn't being supported at the right place. It wasn't using the right adapters. There was too much side load, placed on the vehicle. It came off of an adapter, and one of the arms, comes, swinging out of the way, and then one quarter, you see, one, whole section of the car come down, and then you have this big kind of wonky mess. I'm pretty sure anybody that works in our industry has seen some of those pictures online. It's easy kind of after the fact to look at those, the fail videos and kind of laugh at them, but that costs somebody a lot of money. That cost, a shop owner a lot of money. That potentially raised somebody's insurance, and the potential for injury was immense, just absolutely huge. And if somebody hadn't potentially just sidestepped right at the right moment, that would not be, a funny internet fail video. It would be a tragedy. And
You bring up
so,
a good
excuse me.
point. I
Yeah.
don't mean to interrupt there, but you bring up a good
No,
point
no,
because so much of what we want to and like to talk about is really positive and optimistic injury stuff. But when it comes to safety, I'd be remiss not to highlight the liability component of this. Many of our listeners are business owners. They're not out on the shop floor operating lifts day to day. But to stress the importance of ensuring that your employees and your team are operating equipment that is related to life safety, there's really nothing more important than that. We have a liability concern
absolutely.
of thousands or tens of thousands for the vehicle, but you're not going to put a number on the value of the health and safety of your team as well. So
100%, 100%.
I want to bring that home, and then I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and put us in reverse and talk about something a little bit less diabolical and
Sure.
life or death, but still related to the health and safety of employees. And that's something that Bendpak has been working on. I know some unrelated to lift manufacturers in the automotive industry have been working on this as well. And that is equipment designed with ergonomics in mind, making equipment that is comfortable to use and safe to use for the long-term health of employees and technicians. What can you tell me about why ergonomics are important when it comes to equipment design and all sorts of different equipment?
Absolutely. So, I'm going to take us back just a hair to liability. Why is comfort important? Because comfort, equals, uh, ultimately operator health. I can think of, being in the shop and working under lifts. I'm 6'1", and generally speaking, on a standard or on a conventional two-post lift that has a 69-inch arm rise, if I'm working underneath, I'm kind of bent, my my bent over, kind of limboing backwards. My legs are more than shoulder width apart. I'm kind of stretching and straining, and in a kind of a tight environment, and I'm sore after not too long. That's something that I think a lot of us are all too familiar with. One of the things that we've done at Bendpak to combat that is, introduce a new line of lifts that actually have a 75.5-inch lift rise. So that means from the ground to the bottom of the arm, you've got 75.5 inches. So once you add the pads, the adapters, whatever you need to lift, even somebody my size and taller can be comfortable working underneath a vehicle. Now, to go back to to your question, is why is it important? No more back strain. You're more comfortable, you're happier, you're increased morale, increased operator comfort leads to increased productivity. Um, don't be the shop owner that has a guy that's breaking his back, and then now you're dealing with workers' comp. Now you're dealing with a guy out of the tech out of the office because he's hurt, and he is hurt. We know, those of us that have been there know it is not easy. It's not comfortable. It can be quite stressful on one's body to do what we do and do what we do in this industry. So I think it's critical to pay attention to ergonomics and look at equipment that is benefiting the technician, making a more comfortable work environment. We at Bendpak, we actually also introduced a new line recently of that we call the Ergo Chair, and that's a couple of different products designed for specifically for automotive technicians that are in multiple positions. One of these is our Ergo RS. It's a convertible creeper and shop seat that has multiple locking positions. So no matter what position you're in or where you need to be, it's going to be it's going to give you the proper back support so that you're not straining. You can be at a low position that's not all the way flat on the ground. Say you're working on a rocker panel on a vehicle that's on like a lower mid-rise lift, and you're putting panels into putting a panel into place, or whatever the task may be. You can be at a lower position and still be supported so that you're not in this kind of half sit-up position and again straining your back. Neck strain, back strain, knees. These are all things that experience a lot of stress. Our bodies take a lot of a hit when we're working, and anything that we can do to mitigate that and make it a little bit more comfortable is good for everybody. It's not just good for the technician; it's good for the shop. It's good for productivity. There's no downside, ultimately.
I'm sort of laughing to myself because it's almost a joke at this point that regardless of the topic on the collision vision, we somehow find a way to bring it to the technician shortage. And I'm going to do that here. You didn't say it directly, but man, this seems like a real recruitment tool. If you keep that in mind when you're hiring, here's what we're doing to make sure that you have a long and healthy career, Mr. Incoming Technician. B, retention tool. We talk about how challenging it is to replace. And this is a career collision repair that is really hard on technicians' bodies. And so there is a longevity concern. If you can do a couple little things that really aren't so little, but little to you, the shop owner, what a great thing for both recruitment, retention, morale, efficiency. It seems like a no-brainer.
Absolutely. A little bit goes a long way. And, I know a lot of people, I work with clients all the time, that are concerned obviously about their bottom line. They're concerned about, expenses and concerned about cost of equipment. But, when you look at it big picture, when you have the ability to step back and take a look at what you're doing and what certain equipment means and thinking about ergonomics and thinking about the long-term potential, it really becomes a no-brainer to make these investments, because what's really comes down to a couple $100 on the front end can save you thousands, if not tens of thousands, down the road.
And make you even more if we're talking about efficiency, lack of
Absolutely.
downtime. Makes total sense. I on my equipment background, I know I entered the industry about a decade ago, and it was probably 6-7 years ago that there was a focus on ergonomics from whether it was welders or whatever, unrelated. And it made total sense then. I think it makes even more sense now. And it's exciting to hear that R&D is continuing and developing. I know you mentioned some ergonomically minded lifts, the other, I guess, chair and components you mentioned.
Chairs, yeah.
Ergo chair, thank you. Yep. Super interesting. Any others you'd highlight for collision repair operators specifically, or are those going to be the top two?
Well, those are definitely going to be the top two, specifically when we're thinking about collision repair. We also have, a lot of our 4-post lifts are available in a high rise, our 9,000 pound capacity, 14,000 pound capacity. 4-post lifts, again, high rise, it's just going to give you more room to work. Most shops, keyword most, do have the vertical, space to accommodate the higher rise lifts. And, if you have the space for it, I always recommend using it. If you have a technician that's going to be over, 6 feet tall, it pays dividends. And of course, just because it goes that high doesn't mean you have to use it that high. Let's say you have a 5'5" technician. Well, you have plenty of locking positions along that along those columns where you can set it where it best fits the user. So lifts are definitely a big one. The ergo chair is definitely a big one. Another thing that we've got coming out that's it's a little bit of a stretch to tie it to ergonomics, but when it comes to operator comfort and convenience, it's there in spades. We actually have a brand new product called the EV12 DPS. It's currently in development. We did have the prototype out at SEMA this year, and it's an 8-armed lift. If you can picture that,
it's a spider lift, apparently.
It is
an arachnid lift.
We call it the Octaflex, and ultimately what you have is a traditional 2-post lift, and then on the outside of the 2-post columns, you have another 4 accessory arms that swing in to take care of to take care of whatever you need it to do. One of the things I would say, let me back up. 2 big use case scenarios that we've been looking at while in development. A would be EVs, being able to drop EV batteries from a vehicle that is already on a lift, so that you can take it out, put it on a shuttle table, move it away, still have your vehicle serviceable. But then, now when we're talking about collision and body specifically, cab off. anytime that you're doing cab off work, you need to, lift the body off, body off frame. I know it's not really as big now with unibody vehicles, but let's be honest, we're not all just working on unibody vehicles. We still get some of the old stuff in the shop, I'm sure, and trucks are still body on frame. So anytime you have a body on frame application and you have the potential to where you're going to want to lift a vehicle body and separate that frame, well, now you can use the auxiliary lift arms to lift the body off, off the frame, and you can still have the chassis suspended. So if you need to be multitasking, if you're working on wheels, if you're working on suspension components, and you want to get all one and done, the Octaflex is a pretty fantastic solution, and definitely one of a kind.
Very cool. No, that's very, very interesting. And I'm so happy you mentioned a couple different use cases, EV being a very popular topic, of course.
Sure.
What should shop owners be thinking of when it comes time to purchase a lift? What are some different things, whether it's, I know we talked about the ergonomic component and kind of the profile of their technicians. How about the type of work they're doing, like EVs? What do they need to be thinking about?
And that's a great question. And ultimately, it's a shop owner's, or at a shop owner's discretion, I should say, to understand their clientele. And as we're growing, if you're going to be doing EV service, you're going to need to be mindful of the requirements for lifting EVs. For instance, one of the things that we've done on our lifts, all of our new AP Series 2-post lifts have what we call the ASARS, ASARS, yep, sorry, arm restraint system. And that's a 360-degree locking arm restraint gear ring. If you're used to using 2-posts, I'm sure you've seen the conventional arm restraints. The same ones we used to use that other lifts have used forever. They're kind of like two kind of half moon gear rings, and you got a couple of teeth in there, and kind of holds it in place. Well, here's the thing: when we look at EVs, when we look at a lot of the modern, just modern unibody vehicles in general, lift points are moving further and further outward. Being on the right lift point and holding that lift point is critical. This goes kind of back to what we were saying much earlier in the conversation about seeing one of those arms flail out because the weight shifted, and then you have that little gear ring kind of holding it in place. But a huge weight shift can cause that arm to just kick on out. We're trying to mitigate that risk with the new ASAR system by giving you 360 degrees of locking coverage. So it actually works kind of like a cap covers the full gear ring as opposed to just having two interlocking gears. That's going to mitigate a lot of risk there. But ultimately, it's designed again for these EVs, for these unibodies with those outward lift points, because you just don't have the room anymore. When you were grabbing vehicles from way underneath, you were a foot inset from from the side or from the rocker panel, and you were grabbing a frame. Yeah, there was some room to play there. At times, you had a nice big solid frame rail. It's just not the case anymore with most vehicles. So definitely, think about who your clientele is, what kind of lifting you're doing. There are frame engaging lifts. Not everybody needs a 2-post or a 4-post. There are frame engaging lifts that are mid-rise or full rise that might better suit what you're doing specifically. I know in the auto body collision world, even down to detailing and oil and lube service, oftentimes the right solution is just be a little simpler and go with something that's small and frame engaging, or a low-rise scissor option, because that gets the job done, and it does so effectively, affordably, and safely.
I feel like I just walked through a sales process, a very consultative one. And these are all the questions you want to ask. I think there's and I know this from experience, a bit of a misconception that lifts lift cars. And sure, yeah, of course, by design, that is what they do. But there are different types of lifts for different use cases. And to get an understanding of that, I think is incredibly important.
Absolutely.
How does Bendpak work with shop owners to really determine the right fit of a product for them?
Well, that's a great question, and I have a an overwhelmingly simple answer. Call and speak with one of our representatives. Call and speak with one of our representatives. They're going to take into consideration your shop, what your shop is. They're going to ask you questions. What are you doing? Are you a collision center? Are you general repair? Where are you located? Are you in Montana, where most of your business is going to be large 4x4s? Are you in Los Angeles, where you're doing a lot of EVs and smaller sedans and coupes? Taking into consideration the clientele, the needs of the shop, what the shop is doing, um, the shop space, how tall are your ceilings? What floor space do you have? What are you allocating for your bays? Those are all things that our team are going to work with you on, find out, and then can make the best recommendation on what it is you're doing specifically. All too often we see folks will call and say, I want a two-post lift that's a 12,000 pound capacity, and I want it to do, and I want it here. Um, and whoa, real quick, before we go there, that's great. We're glad you know what you're looking for. Just want to make sure it's the right thing for you, because oftentimes not only are we going to be saving you some time, some effort, and some frustration, but potentially money as well, because a lot of people do. I've seen a lot of people actually overestimating what they need in a lift. Thinking, oh, most of the vehicles I work on are 8,000 pounds. I'm just throwing a number out there for not many things are 8,000 pounds. I better get a 12,000 pound lift so that I have an adequate safety factor. Don't need it. You're actually getting into a different style lift, and what a lot of people don't know is that a 12,000 pound capacity lift is actually designed more for trucks. That means the arms are thicker. That means it's not going to clear, some of the lower profile vehicles that you're trying to work on. And again, when we're talking ALI certified lifts, uh, you know, people really should have no qualms about what the rated capacity is. That safety factor has been considered. Believe me.
A lot to think about, and it makes sense to get some advice from the experts, no question about it. Now, other than calling you and your team, you've been very generous with your time, so I want to wrap it up and kind of bring this home.
Sure.
What final piece of advice would you give to shop owners about investing in the right equipment for their long-term success?
Again, I hate to be overly simplistic, but do your homework. I realize shop owners out there, you're dealing with a million things. You're dealing with a tech out. You're dealing with an angry customer. You're dealing with the parts guy not showing up on time. I get the industry. I get that you're busy, but when it comes to making these decisions, I see sometimes they'll look at the catalog, the parts catalog from whatever whoever's around, and they'll say, well, that's a cheap one. Let's just do that. Oh yeah, let's just get that one. Do not shop that way. Take some time, do a little research, do your homework, look into, if you see one that you like, if you see a lift that you're interested in, look at the three lifts in that same category. Look at what the differences are. Look at, is one helping you more than the other? Is one giving you the opportunity to be more versatile than the other? People talk about asymmetric versus symmetric. I know Bendpak, and I know some competitors as well, but Bendpak, one of the things that we've done recently is introduce a new arm style so that you can practically load two-post lifts both asymmetrically and symmetrically. When in the old days, like when I was a tech, if you were going to load a symmetric lift asymmetrically, it meant putting the car in neutral, shuffling it forward, moving arms, pushing the car backwards, shuffling arms. It was just a big song and dance. Not the case anymore. So definitely do the research, look into what you need, make sure that you're getting the most out of the equipment, make sure that you're looking at equipment that's going to be a benefit to you in the long run and not the short run, ultimately.
Makes total sense. Dave, really appreciate all the time you've spent with us here today, educating us on lift selection, lift safety, some really important things. I'm going to include a bunch of links in the show notes to be sure, but if somebody's listening and they want to get in touch with you or your team, what's the best way to do that?
Best way to get a hold of us is now I blank on it. Bendpak, Bendpak.com. You can contact us. There's a contact us link there, and you can always reach out to sales@bendpak.com for any inquiries about products or product support, and they'll be able to get you to the right team. If you already have a Bendpak product and you're looking to get some support, you have some questions, again, you can call us 800-253-2363 or support@bendpak.com. We'll help you out.
Boom. I will go ahead and include all that in the show notes as well. So if you're listening to this and you're driving, don't pull out your phone. Don't do anything. It'll be right there for you. Dave, really appreciate your time and appreciate your ability to make something really important, also really fun and interesting to talk about.
Hey, my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Cole.
That is all for today's episode of the Collision Vision. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dave Wiederschall on the importance of lift safety and ergonomically designed equipment in the shop. This stuff is so important, and anytime the words life safety are mentioned, listen twice. It should not be overlooked. If today's episode sparked any ideas for improving safety and efficiency in your own shop, be sure to hit that follow button wherever you listen to podcasts, or check us out on YouTube, where the Collision Vision lives in video form. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so please feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with your network to keep the conversation going. On behalf of the Auto Body News team and myself, thank you for coming along for the ride.